Good day, mixed martial arts fans, and welcome to CIB24's very first episode of MMA Punchline. I'm your host, Adam Palumbo, and I will be bringing you the very best MMA content every week from CIB24's very own YouTube channel. This week's episode centers on upcoming UFC 167 pay-per-view card, headlined by none other than welterweight champion and Canada's own Georges St-Pierre versus the #1 contender, Johny Big Rig Hendricks. On today's episode, we'll break down the headlining fight and the controversy leading up to UFC 167. Also, stay tuned till the end of today's episode to catch my new ongoing segment, Myths and Misunderstandings About Mixed Martial Arts, where we discuss popular but unfounded myths about MMA. So okay, Georges St-Pierre versus Johny Hendricks. Both fighters are coming off big wins against top-ranked opponents. Hendricks earned his title shot by stringing together 6 consecutive victories, his last coming in a fight of the night performance against former #1 contender Carlos Condit. For those of you at home who haven't seen this fight, find a way to check it out. It is one heck of a battle and an amazing display of heart from both fighters. Georges St-Pierre, with 8 title defenses, has ruled over the 170-pound division for over 5 years. A cerebral fighter, St-Pierre has a tendency to attack his opponents where they're weakest. With his all-around skill set and masterful takedowns, St-Pierre typically has the ability to dictate where the fight takes place, whether it be on the feet or on the ground. And he has used this ability to handedly grind out his opponents to unanimous decision wins. But there's a growing population in the MMA community that believes Hendricks has the wrestling pedigree to not only stop St-Pierre's takedowns, but maybe get a few of his own, and a particularly powerful left hook that could finally bring an end to the champion's reign. So let's check him out. Hendricks is a 4-time Division I All-American wrestler from Oklahoma State University and 2-time national champion. Since entering the UFC, Hendricks has earned 3, yes that's right, 3 knockout of the night bonuses. He's dangerous, powerful, talented, and confident. So let's see how these two stack up against each other. Striking. GSP is definitely the more polished and dynamic striker of the two. He has one of, if not the best jabs in the UFC. Combine this with his Kyokushin karate background, and you have a versatile striker who is able to close the distance and move out of range effectively. But he doesn't nearly possess the same punching power as Hendricks. 3 out of Hendricks' last 6 wins have come by way of knockout, and it could pose a dangerous problem for St-Pierre. Still, I'll have to give the advantage to St-Pierre in the striking department. Now, wrestling. Now, conventional wisdom would tell us that Johny Hendricks, the 2-time national champion and All-American in wrestling, would have a clear wrestling advantage. But St-Pierre, who despite not having any wrestling credentials, has disposed of All-American national champions in the past, often with ease, and it is said that St-Pierre has the best MMA-adapted style of wrestling in the game. So that makes this a tough one. I personally will not be surprised if either of these fighters score takedowns, and it will be an interesting chess match. It's too close to call, so I'm calling it a draw. Jiu-jitsu and ground game. Now this is an interesting one because GSP has the ability to threaten his opponent with submissions and do some great work from the top position. The trouble is, Georges hasn't fought anyone as strong or as big as Hendricks for some time, maybe not since Thiago Alves. So it'll be interesting to see that if Georges gets Hendricks down, if he'll be able to keep Hendricks down. Now on the flip side, Johny Hendricks has also demonstrated the ability to control and do some significant damage from the top position. It helps that he is heavier than most of his opponents, but Georges is tough to control off his back and is fantastic at getting back to his feet. So likewise, if Hendricks is capable of getting Georges St-Pierre down, it will be interesting to see if he can keep him down and impose his will. Now this may be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to have to give a slight edge to St-Pierre on this one because of his more complete submission game. But my predictions on the fight? Now I think one of the biggest things people are forgetting leading up to this fight is that this will be Hendricks' first 5-round bout. GSP, for better or worse, has a strong history of taking guys into the championship rounds. And you gotta remember, Johny Hendricks is a big boy. They don't call him Big Rig for nothing. Has gone on record as saying he walks around over 200 pounds, and we really don't know how he's gonna look going into the 4th and 5th. Don't get me wrong, Hendricks is no cardio slouch, but Georges is a tactical fighter equipped with a 7-inch reach advantage and a wicked jab that has a tendency to throw his opponents into fits and wear them out. Now, contrary to what most people think, I don't see Johnny's left hand being an issue for Georges. Georges is a cautious and conscientious fighter who can control distance and stick and move effectively. Now, where I do see Hendricks having a clear advantage over the champ is with his strength. Hendricks likes to come forward and he doesn't mind eating a few punches in the process. And I think that if he does get his hands on Georges St. Pierre, there's a good chance he'll be able to overpower him and take him down. And possibly even keep him down, something I haven't been able to say about any of GSP's previous opponents. Now, despite all this, I think Georges is the more cerebral and polished fighter of the two, and will come up with an effective game plan, as he always does, against the challenger. My pick for the fight, Georges St. Pierre. Now, for the most part, both fighters have been pretty respectful in the trash-talking department of things, but there's been a lot of controversy leading up to this fight concerning both these fighters doing additional drug testing. And what started as an attempt to spin a positive image on the sport of MMA has definitely taken a turn for the worse. Now, folks, over the course of his career, Georges St. Pierre has been accused by many of his opponents for taking performance-enhancing drugs, including BJ Penn, Josh Koscheck, and Nick Diaz. From what we can tell, these accusations only stem from Georges St. Pierre's physical appearance. Back in July, to clear his name and improve the image of MMA, Georges St. Pierre said that he would be willing to do additional drug testing by VADA, the voluntary anti-doping agency, and offered to pay for Johny Hendricks to do the same. A week later, Hendricks accepted and all was well in the MMA world. Then came September, and it was reported that Johny Hendricks missed the deadline to sign up for VADA, and the media storm ensued. You know, why did Johny not participate, and does he have something to hide? Then Johny Hendricks came out and explained how he wanted to use WADA with a W through the United States Anti-Doping Agency instead of VADA with a V, because he suspected Georges had affiliations with VADA. Georges then said that he would do the USADA testing as Hendricks requested, but that he would continue to do VADA as well. But seeing as the deadline to do the USADA testing has passed, it looks like Johny Hendricks will not be undergoing any additional testing, and Georges St. Pierre will follow through with his commitment to do VADA, which is now almost meaningless and is stuck with a $10,000 price tag for doing so. A little confusing, a little silly, believe me, I know. But in the end, here's what both fighters have had to say about it. Georges St. Pierre's take. I want to elevate the sport to a more mainstream level. And I think it, referring to drug testing, is the next step. But that he doesn't know if they, referring to the UFC, are willing to support me. I thought they were ready to support me, but I was disappointed, very disappointed with this turn of events. And Johny Hendricks' take. You know, I don't care. I do not care if he tests or he doesn't test. I need him to be there at UFC 167, November 16th, and that's it. So firstly, I think it's unfair for a fighter like Georges St. Pierre to be judged on his physical appearance, when he has passed all drug tests in his career and hasn't had any major changes in his physical appearance in the last 13 years. Unlike compared to, say, Alistair Overeem, who has failed multiple drug tests in the past and went through a drastic body transformation from the beginning of his career until present. But regardless, I think this situation has shown a poor light on both fighters, but it didn't necessarily have to. I think it is a little irresponsible for Johny Hendricks to accuse VADA of having affiliations with Georges St. Pierre. VADA is a respected agency that follows guidelines dictated by the World Anti-Doping Agency and has been used in many mixed martial arts and boxing matches in the past, often busting its participants for PEDs. However, from the looks of emails released by Keith Kaiser, president of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which details the negotiations between the GSP and Hendricks camps, GSP's camp could have handled the situation better and prevented this from happening in the first place. So it's hard to tell what to do about this in the future if the UFC fails to support the fighters who want to do it. Dana White has gone on record saying he thinks the whole thing is stupid. And he's right. The whole thing does look stupid if left in the hands of fighters and their management. Because then you always have a case of he said or she said, and camps backing out, and camps wanting to use this agency instead of that agency instead of this agency or that agency. And it becomes a cloudy distraction to the fight itself. Dana White does have a point, that it is not the job of the UFC to do additional drug testing. That is the job of the Athletic Commission in each state. But I do believe they should at least be a facilitator to fighters who want to participate in additional tests, and should have a de facto drug agency to perform additional tests in the event fighters want to do them. So they should have a company policy that says, okay, you want to do additional tests, that's fine. But if you want to do them, you're paying for them, and you have to use this agency endorsed by the UFC. I think that solves a lot of the problems in the future and for this event itself. But okay, it's time to move on to our next segment and move past UFC 167. So this is one I'd like to call MMA/MMA, or Myths and Misunderstandings about Mixed Martial Arts, where we take a look at popular but unfounded myths and misunderstandings about mixed martial arts and try to debunk them. In this week's segment, we will tackle the myth about leg kicks. Now, over the years, I've been around many a casual fan watching MMA who simply don't appreciate kicks through opponents' legs. Kicks to the leg can be used for many reasons, often with devastating consequences. They can distract an opponent while the fighter sets up moves of their own. They can hinder the opponent's legs so he is unable to effectively set up his own moves, or in some cases, can just cause serious pain. Now, I understand why some fans that are uneducated on the subject might be oblivious to the effects of a leg kick. After all, if you're just discussing this with your buddies, a kick to the leg seems much less effective than a punch to the face. But there's a big difference between taking a kick to the leg from your best friend and taking a kick to the leg from a trained mixed martial arts fighter. I traveled to Markham, Ontario, to our friends at Pound for Pound Gym to demonstrate my point. So check out the clip. There you have it, folks. I just sacrificed my body for your enlightenment, so never again do I want to hear people question the potential effectiveness of a leg kick, mainly because I never want to have to do that again. Our time is up for today's episode. I would love to hear feedback in the comment section below, and be sure to check up on CIB24's YouTube channel for new episodes of MMA Punchline. I'm your host, Adam Palumbo. Until next time, MMA fans.